The Hikikomori route of Omori has always been one shrouded in mystery and secrets. It hinges on the player making one simple decision early on, which sends them spiraling down a path of darkness and complexity. It's a very deceptive choice, since the player is primed to go down it after they open the door for the first time. I've met a couple different people who played this route as their first one, since they assumed opening the door for Kel would lead to another jump scare. The new areas opened up to you by going down this path, like the Abyss and Black Space 2, are twisted and a bit disturbing. They lurk in the corners of headspace waiting for you to discover them, though there is a new area that isn't as outwardly creepy. You've read the title of this video, so I'm sure you know what I'm alluding to. Since Snowglobe Mountain is at the end of the Hikikomori route, there will be massive spoilers for Omori in this video. But just in case you didn't know, here's your warning. This game will also have the same triggers as in the game, which should be on screen. Though this video is going to be a lot lighter on those topics. Please take care of yourself. Still here? Well, grab your scarf from the winter sprout mole and enjoy the ride. Just as I used the arrow maze to ease into Brevin in my last video, I'll be starting off with a brief analysis of the frozen lake, snow forest, whatever you want to call it, as an introduction. I'll be calling this area the frozen lake going forward, just to not confuse it with a different place in Snowglobe Mountain that you'll see later. When you save the game here at Mari's Picnic, it's called the Frozen Lake, but the music for this area is titled Snow Forest, so it can really go either way. But I'm not trying to make this video as confusing as possible, so let's just stick with that. This area is especially small with a limited amount of things to do, so this won't take too long. Let's get a small theory of mine out of the way first, though. Despite there being a variety of climates in Headspace, I believe that the general season of it is summer, just like in the real world. I don't think the seasons match up with what's going away in Faraway Town, but rather freeze one point in Sunny's life in this sort of infinite loop. The last photos in Basil's photo album are dated as September, and it confirms that the fatal night of the recital takes place in October. This is probably the most lukewarm take ever, but I think the versions of his friends and his life that Sunny, and by extension Omori, wants to preserve is right before the accident, summer break. Around that time, there would be no obligations to go to school or having to worry about any homework. Everyone is alive and happy. They can just play for as long as they want. Alright, well, at least we all understand what I'm saying so far? Cool. Quite literally in this case, since the frozen lake sticks out immediately against the warm, summery feel of Headspace. When locked in an eternal summer, the idea of winter is bound to be out of place. The snow effect here is the same as the church in Black Space and the Cattail Field section. You know the one. There's not many ties to other minor areas beyond that, though. The mountain in Black Space definitely has a stronger connection, but it's probably because the two areas look similar due to the snow on the ground, and it's a snowy mountain, much like the place Frozen Lake leads to. Even though it's a basic level similarity, I think it's supposed to be. When you climb up this big, snowy mountain, you're supposed to feel a little uneasy because that's the magic of Black Space. It leaves its calling cards everywhere to ensure that we never feel too safe in Headspace due to its lurking presence. Especially on the Hikikomori route, where Sunny ceases to exist anymore by the time we reach the second mountain. We're able to visit even more of Black Space as often as we'd like. Besides thinking, oh man, there sure is snow here, there are a few other things worth bringing up. After beating Space Ex-Boyfriend in the prologue, he gives you a handy-dandy snow cone ticket. You can find him here afterwards at Frozen Lake, with his crew enjoying some snow cones, as well as serving as a nice bit of foreshadowing for where you'll look for him later on. Regardless, I find it sweet. I touched on this briefly in my Orange Oasis video, but Mari's dialogue here speaks about the snow, reminding her to be patient and all that jazz. One of the main tracks for Snowglobe Mountain is titled Remember to be Patient, and it shares a leitmotif with the track Puddles. I won't be talking about Puddles all that much, or its connections to Orange Oasis, since I already did that. But if you're interested, I definitely recommend you check out that video of mine over the Orange Oasis. Alright, last couple things. The ice fishing event you can do is cute, the snow bunnies are even cuter, and we have a mysterious igloo near the bottom left of the map. A weird ghost thing flies out of it when you interact with it for the first time, so maybe they lived there? Or something, I don't know. Clearly someone lives here though, since it's got a bed, a fridge, and some other stuff like a singing fish, and a personal portal to a remote mountain. Speaking of which, if you poke around this igloo before Sunny gets absorbed by his preteen persona, you won't get very far. The fish is a bit dead, and the trapdoor is shut, meaning there's something here that Sunny wouldn't be able to handle seeing, but since he's gone, there's no longer a need to seal it away. So let's figure out this mystery and the other assorted secrets of Snowglobe Mountain together, shall we? After completely resetting Headspace and crying your eyes out, it's Snowglobe Mountain time. If you slap some batteries into the plastic fish, he'll sing you a funny little song, which I quite enjoy, and you'll be able to go to the basement. Hooray! The teleportation circle here looks a lot like the one you used to teleport to Brevin in the Orange Oasis, but instead of having an orange piece of bread as the center image, there's a blue pine tree, indicating that you'll be teleported to the Dipper Pines Snowglobe Mountain. Right before that, there's a penguin named Mr. Penguin. Very original. If you talk to him, he'll relay you a message from SpaceX husband. Sweetheart actually does the same thing with flamingos named Mrs. Flamingo. At least we know where his great naming abilities came from. Hell, his initials are one letter off from hers. So, there's that. There's a bunch of these penguins as you progress up the mountain, each with an angsty message of varying degree. Since they play a small role on this mountain, I'll just talk about them here so I don't have to going forward unless I need to. The general gist of the messages is that he's depressed about Sweetheart divorcing him to the point of not being able to feel anything anymore. Because of this, he wants to be left alone and doesn't want to condemn anyone to the same fate as him. It's sad, it's dramatic, it's great. When you climb up the ladder after teleporting, you're in another igloo, but this time there's a bunch of plastic fish upstairs, and I think that's wonderful. One last thing about the igloo, I swear this video isn't only about the igloos. I think I know who it actually belongs to. But to do that, we'll need to make a small detour into color associations in Omori. Buckle up, folks. The color coding is pretty straightforward in Omori. A good example would be how Kel is represented by orange. His jersey in the real world, his pinwheel, his clothes and Sunny's memories of him, and a lot more are all in that color. Mari is associated with purple, which is likely why all of Headspace is painted in that color. Hero is blue, Basil is green, Aubrey is pink with the exception of super bright or almost reddish pinks, which are associated with Sweetheart. And Sunny and Omori are with the color white. Except when they're associated with red, or indigo, or black, or beige, or... So, yeah, really easy and not complicated at all. The Igloo features a lot of items that are blue and green, with purple and pink accents here and there. You could say, oh, it belongs to anyone in the main group except for Cal or Omori, since I just gave you characters to match with all of those colors. But Captain Spaceboy actually features all of those colors on his character design. I mean, he is the main boss of Snowglobe Mountain, and one of his penguins is in the basement of the Otherworld Igloo, and right outside the mountain one. I don't think it's very hard to believe that he might have been camping out in the mountain igloo after Sweetheart broke up with him before climbing said mountain. The ghost in the otherworld Igloo could indicate that he hasn't used that particular one in a while. The fish missing its batteries could mean that he took them out intentionally so that people couldn't break into a secret getaway. It isn't a big stretch to think that he discarded those himself, since at the start of the quest to find Captain Spaceboy, the crow his father sends to get him only finds batteries. Alright, the Igloo analysis has been fun, but let's actually analyze the damn mountain. Immediately leaving the Igloo leads to a snow forest. See, I told you there's a good reason to call the other place Frozen Lake. This forest bears a striking resemblance to the snow world in Yume Nikki, and I'm pretty surprised that I haven't seen anyone bring it up before. Unlike the snow world, this snow forest spits you out at the foot of a mountain when you hit the edge of this map in any direction instead of infinitely looping. Interestingly enough, the bigger areas before the mountain's peak do loop if you go left or right, though. This isn't a trait that many maps in Headspace have. The only example I can really find is the underwater highway, but even then, it only loops if you head east of the entrance to Deepwell, or walk to the east or west of the road in front of Last Resort. You know where looping maps are extremely common in Omori, though? Yeah, it all comes back to black space. Gotta love it! As you ascend further up the mountain, you'll find only a couple of new NPCs and enemies. Since the mountain is named after them, it feels only fitting that I address the Snowglobes first. There's only 3 of them that can be interacted with, and a name like Snowglobe Mountain made me think that there'd be more of them. Oh well, I'm glad they're here at all. Each one shows a different winter scene, which I can only assume are based on Sunny's memories, but the language used to describe them are vastly different from how his memories in the last library are worded. Here, I'll read you an excerpt from each. He knows you should put in his fair share. It just had to be the hottest day of summer. You see some kids sledding down a steep hill. They look like they're having fun. Although the memories from the Snowglobes sound more happy, they lacked that distinct personal connection, as if the person the stories were centered around was removed or distanced from it. I find this style of narrating Sunny's memories from the perspective of an outsider after the events of Sunny's final day in Faraway Town to be clever, but I do wish there were 6 Snowglobes to parallel the 6 stories you can find in the Lost Library. Regardless, we'll play it Omocat. Babbo is a funny little guy, but unfortunately not relevant to this video. Sorry, man. You can find him someplace that looks like a smaller version of the frozen lake, which is kind of neat. Trevor, near the snow cone machine, does have some interesting dialogue, though. He says that the snow makes him miss being a kid again despite not growing up with snow, and he doesn't know why that is. With this line and the images in the Snowglobes, our first theme starts to appear: nostalgia. This theme is obviously all throughout Headspace, from places Sunny explores to the friends he adventures with, but it's especially in your face here. I mean, the final boss is a man consumed by the pain of his past, but we'll discuss him later. That's about it for the new non-hostile characters, and I am not talking about those stupid snow piles, so let's keep moving. On both of her picnics, because this place is big enough to need 2, talking to Mari makes her point out how cold and remote this mountain is. I'm sure you can already smell the second theme of the Snowglobe Mountain from a mile away, and how much the game repeatedly tells it to you, but I'm doing my best to save it for the boss section. Anyways, in the first picnic cutscene, Basil will talk about how the snow makes him really sad, but he doesn't know why. I think this is a pretty easy one to solve. Basil was strung up in the Black Space Church on top of a small snowy mountain. That's gotta cause some emotional distress being in a place similar to the one you were sort of held captive in. Or maybe Basil has seasonal affective disorder. You never know. Slide through some puzzles, and the Snow Angel area is upon us. There's a bunch of these guys, and it's kind of interesting. Their battle is the same as the minor something-related enemies and the Hush Puppies in Orange Oasis. Screw Black Space, everything really comes back to the Orange Oasis. Not to dunk on the Omori wiki too much, but their page for the Snow Angel under trivia says, Snow Angel shares the same background music of the Something in the Dark boss fight, which is just blatantly false. The song for the Something in the Dark fight is called Acrophobia, and it sounds like this. The song for the Snow Angel fight is called Fade, and it sounds like this. Come on, Omori Wiki, you got this. I have a bit more to say about the theme, but unfortunately this too has to be tabled for after the major boss fight. I should probably address the medium-sized elephant in the room now before it gets any bigger. There are undeniably some religious undertones to the snowy mountains, both in Black Space and Dead Space. In Black Space, there's a church, religious figures that seem to judge you, and Basil is strung up in a Jesus-like pose by his something. Snowglobe Mountain having snow angels has a twofold meaning, in my opinion. One is that it's a play on words for that fun activity you can do in the snow, and the other is that these enemies look a lot like biblical angels that are usually depicted in art. Now, before I get any further, I need to give a disclaimer. I do not know a lot about religion, especially Christianity, which this game seems to reference. While I did go to Catholic school for a couple years while my age was in the single digits, I am by no means an expert. I don't want this video to be primarily about this topic, so I'll keep it as brief and respectful as I can. Cool? Cool. In both the real and dream worlds, Sunny feels as if religious statues judge him. There is also some unused text for the Snow Angel's battle, where, before using the heart-piercing action, it would have said a Latin phrase that translates to, "Mortal deeds never deceive the gods." This is unused, so take this with a grain of salt, but I think these two ideas mesh together quite well. My small theory is that Sunny used to go to church with his family, but stopped going after Mari's death. He doesn't seem to hold any strong religious beliefs, but apart from those examples I mentioned earlier, there is a metal plate you can step on in Sweetheart's Castle that will send you to one of two places depending on what route you're on. The files call these places for the true and hikikomori route, heaven and hell respectively. Sunny has an understanding of religion to the point of his own mind being able to reference it, but not enough for him to seem particularly passionate about, which I think him going to church at a younger age would accomplish. Last thing, a big part of Christianity is that the god that is worshipped is all-knowing. Sunny seeing a statue related to this god might make him feel as though he is being judged, since he might assume his actions relating to Mari's death are known and being judged no matter how much he suppresses it. Religious rant over. Final stretch of the mountain. We're almost there. When approaching the mountain's peak, you'll find Mari's second and final picnic of the area. You can tell it's cold up here because the song title for the mountain's peak is called Cold. The group agrees to go somewhere warmer next time, and I know a pretty good spot. Finally, the moment I've been unintentionally building up, Space Ex-Husband. It would be incredibly easy to write this boss fight off as the angsty ramblings of a man who just got out of a bad relationship, Sweetheart divorced him, and they'll probably be back together within the next couple of days. End video. But I never saw Captain Spaceboy that way. Sweetheart is cruel and shallow and a million other terrible things. I'd go as far as to say she brings out the worst in Captain Spaceboy. When they broke up, he became depressed and straight up violent. Even when they were together, his crew and his father could tell things weren't good. If you venture far enough into Sweetheart's dungeon, you'll find a small replica of Captain Spaceboy's room, with things specifically meant to torment him. It's even implied heavily that she made him eat and drink out of dog bowls, too. The flamingo outside this room has a message from Sweetheart, calling it a special hell for him. This guy's been through a lot without a doubt, and this divorce absolutely crushed him. He wandered off to a frozen remote mountain, warning anyone who tries to find him to avoid his same fate. Every time I play Omori, I get something new out of it. My first time, I played on the Xbox Game Pass. It was the summer going into my senior year of high school. All of the time during my summer job, I would think about this game and how much I wanted to go home and play it. I finished the true route, and I cried my eyes out for about 5 hours straight. A couple months later, I ended up cutting contact with my childhood best friend. Omori, in a strange way, comforted me through this loss. My second playthrough was of the true route again. I had recently grown close with, then abruptly apart from someone I still really care about. It wasn't my choice this time. When I played the game, I found myself falling victim to the same pitfalls as Sunny. I wanted to escape my pain, so I just played video games for most of my day. Unfortunately, this person haunted me like a ghost, despite still being alive. The segments in faraway town with Mari's spirit just reminded me of how haunted I really felt. I knew after finishing the game and crying my eyes out again that I needed to keep going. I couldn't indulge in this escapist behavior anymore. My life was going to pass me by, and that was the last thing I wanted. My most recent playthrough was not long ago at all. I wanted to do research into this area called Snowglobe Mountain. I had never played it before, and doing so for research made me feel a little less bad about dooming Sunny to the Hikikomori route. Coincidentally, I started grieving this person again before beginning this playthrough. Obviously, I cried my eyes out once again, but what really hit me like a truck was this final story of Captain Spaceboy. Ironically, at the top of the mountain is where Omori and his friends find him at his lowest. When you beat him at the peak of the mountain, he realizes that his life isn't over. The grief he feels is all-consuming to the point that he wanted to be rid of any emotions at all, but it's something he has to work through. He doesn't have the title of captain for no reason. He has a crew that cares deeply about him, and a father who wants the best for him. He rides off in his ship and returns back home. He is safe. His life will keep going without Sweetheart. He's surrounded by people who care deeply for him. Grief is an extremely difficult thing, and I doubt that Captain Spaceboy, Sunny, and I are the only ones who isolate themselves when grieving. My takeaway from this story is that just because you feel alone and swallowed by your own pain doesn't mean you are alone. There are always people who love you and want to see you doing well. With a message like this, it's easy to see why Sunny was prohibited from this area. If he could have seen this before being erased, perhaps Sunny would have opened the door to his house when Kel came knocking for the last time. Perhaps Sunny could have been a little nicer to himself. Perhaps Sunny could have gotten the strength to find the people who unconditionally care about him. It's hard to say whether this place could have single-handedly saved Sunny. I mean, Snowglobe Mountain doesn't really change all that much when Captain Spaceboy leaves for the better. Most of Headspace doesn't. But there is one immediate change beyond his sprite now being in a different location. It could just be a glitch. However, if you backtrack to the Snow Angel area, you'll find that the battle music has changed. It's no longer the somber track Fade, but rather the song that plays for all of the minor enemies on Snowglobe Mountain and the Frozen Lake. It's the more upbeat track, White Surf Style 6. If you leave the mountain and come back to this particular area, you'll find that the original track has been restored, but I like to think that if even for a short period of time, there is a little bit more joy in this snowy mountain. The judgment has been eased ever so slightly. There might just be hopes for a happy ending. Not on this save file, but perhaps in the next, or in your very own life. Thank you so much for watching. This video topic was actually recommended to me by one of my viewers of my Orange Oasis video, and I really appreciate it. Since I've never played the Hikikomori route, this gave me a really good excuse to do so. I went in with pretty much no expectations, and I enjoyed this area far more than I thought I would, and I hope the video reflects that to some extent. Please let me know your thoughts, theories, video suggestions, or anything else in the comments. I love hearing what everyone has to say. I'm on the road to sweet YouTube monetization, and if you'd like to help me with that, liking this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribing if you're interested in the videos I make, goes a really long way. I'm having a lot of fun making these kinds of video essays over weirdly specific things in video games, so I hope you'll stick around for when I make more of them in the future. Alrighty, I'll see you sometime in the future. Bye!